I hope that you had a good lunch and a little bit, walking around on campus. We will start in a couple minutes. I know I can see that people still go to bathrooms and in and out, so we will start maybe in 3 minutes. But if you'd like to learn more about cybercrime forensic lab that we just had a quick tour, I'm more than happy to share what we did to assist some of you might be interested in setting up similar types of lab in your university. Yes, we will definitely gives you some idea of what we did for the last couple of years. By the way, was taco was okay? The lunch? For those who will stay a little longer today, I know some of people will leave tonight. The location that we have in here, I think I just met a couple of folks who came early in the morning today, and then they also leave tonight. And I guess some of you might not have a chance to go around walking around on campus. It's a nice campus, not only the area that we just went to for dining hall over there, but the other side we have a ocean front side. We have our own private bridges over there. Some of properties on the ocean side that's also part of the college. Those who stay the Wiley Inn, the hotel, that's also part of the college. The behind, the Wiley Inn, the hotel, there's also the sort of pathway to the private the Endicott beach areas as well. So those who will stay here until tomorrow or until Saturday, I encourage you just to walk around the area. It's a nice, small campus, which I enjoy quite a lot. Sometimes I just walk around, some fresh air. So I'd like to introduce our great second keynote speaker, and he is also good friends of Christopher Landy, the first Christopher Landy, the first. Like to give short bio of the special agent Peter Gomez. He is a supervisory special agent of FBI. He is also the director of the New England Regional Computer Forensics Lab here in Boston area. He served more than 27 years as an FBI special agent. As I said, he's currently the director of New England Computer Forensics Labs. And his lab is not just working for only FBI agency, but also many state and other federal and local partners to provide some solid digital forensic evidence and services to law enforcement partners, not only here in Massachusetts, but the neighboring states in New England and Rhode Island, and also all the way up to Maine. Prior to the director role, he was a special supervisor, the agent who is liaison representing FBI, a senior cyber officer at the Europol, assigned to, what JCAT, to Joint Cybercrime Action Task Force. He's the one of the special agent that I know has a lot of international, roles and being in overseas. I don't know anybody else than the Pit that I know. I know a lot of special agents federal level, but he's the one that I really know being actually working in foreign governments, including Australia, New Zealand, Philippines, Turkey, Canada. Obviously, he knows quite a lot how to, collaborate with the international partners, and I think he will talk more about it, the role of the FBI in the global setting. So I'd like you to, again, I'm very proud of him, coming in the Boston office and working with us and then college. He will be also one of the professor in Homeland Security graduate program that we have. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Special Agent Peter Gomez.
I'll try to move it along so we get you guys back on schedule and do the important part, which is that academic exchanges, which I certainly have valued. The master's degree I got was from the Naval Postgraduate School Center for Homeland Security and Defense, which is how I got involved with Homeland Security here back in 2012. And it really, I think, illustrated that benefit of the effective integration of the practitioners and the academic to kind of bring both skills and abilities together to enhance each. So a big believer in that, and we'll get started here. This is the obligatory slide. There's obviously not any unclassified information, but that was one of the corrections I got back in the approval process, so we can move forward. This is me, the title here, and you can see at the bottom, kind of, I guess that represents my my career. I got the FBI 27 years. I'm now the RCFL director. JCAT is where I worked with Christoph for 3 years. And then a few other international. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to go through it fairly quickly so we can get to the case study at the end, is talk a little bit about how we do that sort of collaboration from within the FBI. And I started in the FBI in '98. I can tell you we had a long way to go to enhance our collaboration. We've done, I think, a lot better, but we still have quite a ways to go because you can always do better. So we can go ahead and move. And this, in essence, is the JCAT. About half of the resources come from the FBI. The other half are from the partner agencies. And we provide services not just to the people on this screen, but also to outside agencies. Now, obviously, like everybody, there's limited resources and an insatiable demand for forensics, especially phones these days. So I'd say probably about 20% is outside agencies that are not members, and there could probably be a lot more. You could probably put them all full-time doing that just because of the need. You guys get this. It's a computer forensics lab. There's several different versions here. The Massachusetts Attorney General, Secret Service, Coast Guard. There's a lot out there that are doing this. What we do is fundamentally what they do. We're the FBI, so we have to complicate things and have our own little process. But we're generally using the same tools and paying the money for what are very expensive licenses. I'm currently going through that now to try to keep our Bedford office's capabilities up there. And any sorts of the cases. Now, this is the RCFLs. We have 17 of them across. We're obviously up here in the right corner. As you can guess, that's not all of the FBI's computer forensics. We can't get away with just 17. What these are is essentially forensic task forces. The other areas, all the gray, is covered by the FBI's CART program. So it means just FBI resources, both sworn, law enforcement, and then civilian. So we hire people to be forensic specialists or examiners. They support just the FBI in those other areas. But we have on 17 of them done it. Okay, go back one, if you don't mind. So that it works like a task force and that we support them. I think a few things, the lab director, which I've been fortunate enough to be selected after Europol to be. We have a couple deputy lab directors right now. One of mine is from the Brookline Police. detective who's fantastic, experienced examiner, and then an FBI agent who has been doing examinations for a while, quality manager. And then we have the local executive board. They elect the lab director. It's generally chaired by the FBI, but doesn't have to be. And there's a assistant chair. Right now, it's the Boston Police. And the whole notion is that we keep them informed. They kind of set where we're going forward. But we have to abide by their operational technology division, or CART, which I mentioned. That's our computer forensics standards. Go ahead. This is all the stuff. Again, most of it's pretty standard. You know, and it'll ebb and flow. Like we just lost our Boston police detective, just got promoted. So he was one of the big ones for vehicle forensics. So we have the Brookline detective can do some of it. We'll have to rebuild that capacity. Divert is a thing that isn't technically part of the RCFL. It's our digital imaging and video recovery team. Obviously, Boston learned the hard way after the marathon bombing, the challenges that come with both retrieving and then trying to analyze all this video. It came up again in Brown University. And so we had a couple of our RCFL examiners, actually the BPD, Brookline, and the agent who was acting for me, that were down there helping to collect. Fortunately, in that scenario, the forensics part came later, because otherwise we would have probably need them doing the forensic bit. And training, we don't do enough of, but we'll hopefully do more. Oh, okay.
Encryption.
I only speak one language, so that's not that. But again, kind of the fundamentals of any forensic lab. We have people, our forensic examiners can testify, can give opinions, if necessary. And then, of course, we're trying to bring everyone together so that these very expensive licenses, and as I'm sure people in the room know, it's a constant struggle, even with the licenses, where literally we tell people, we're trying to tell them, call us before you're going to go do a search, because if last night your iPhone said, I have to update, it might be a couple weeks before we can help you, or you might need to understand some of those realities, and then be patient, because we're following the technology. You know, Apple's securing their devices, certainly a noble effort for all of our privacy, but that makes challenges for us, and they're certainly not the only ones. And this is the workflow. We can tap through all these. I don't think anything here is earth-shattering or surprising. We'll keep moving on a couple more steps, and that's what we will do. We do a report, and every review we do, it's become a part of the job nobody mentioned in the advertisement. I do an administrative review, so that's to make sure they're complying with the requirements, and then we try to have 20%, unless you're new. If you're new, you get 100%. That get a tech review, which means a fellow examiner looks at it and says, kind of, did you do it right? Is there opportunities? And then the other thing I'm looking to institute now, I just told them yesterday at the meeting, day before yesterday, I want them all doing part of those tech reviews to make sure they cover all the other examiners, because they can learn a lot by reading the reports and talking to the other examiners, rather than having the newest guy just being forced to kind of do it all, or whoever has a little extra time. Now, what I wanted to talk about, because that's one way we do it, that's domestic. We do not have an international forensics lab. We have 17 of them. We have even more cyber task forces that are looking at cybercrime. But I also want to touch on our legal, our law enforcement attaches or LEGAT offices. And that's where, when I left Endicott in 2012, I was an adjunct here in the Homeland Security program. Part of the reason I didn't continue was the time difference from here to Australia. Didn't think remote teaching, all for it. You know, I think you can learn stuff, but that seemed like a bit much of a challenge. So I chose Australia. Sorry. This is a breakdown that shows you, beyond just being a lot of clutter, where all of our offices are. There's about 300 people overseas. That's not cheap, but it's good that we can have that on the ground presence. These are our cyber law enforcement attaches. We got about 20 of them. We have 2 in the Netherlands, 2 in the United Kingdom. We're very lucky that we can afford to have and send 20 of them overseas to develop the relationships. Most of them, I think that just the fiscal and logistical realities is, if you're lucky, you send somebody to Europol. I think there's about 4 countries that send people to the US. As I said to Casey at lunch, I said for most countries, if I asked them to give up 20 of their cyber experts to send overseas, that would be fine, because they'd have to send all their cyber experts overseas, or maybe not even have 20. So we're very fortunate to have that, and we try to integrate that with what we do. This is all been jumbled together. One more. This is where I've been. Casey already kind of mentioned it. The Philippines, Turkey, Canada were shorter stays. And I did 3 years in Australia, 3 in New Zealand. And then at The Hague, I got to work with 20 different countries, 50 total, or 55 maybe by now. We can get through this. This is just our fundamentals. But the gist of it is, we are a guest when we're overseas. I have no law enforcement authority, can't arrest anybody, can't do investigative activity. It's all up to the host country. And so we have to respect that and follow their laws. Generally speaking, that means making the request to them. Whether it can be an informal police to police, which is why I'm there, or it has to be formal via a letters rogatory or mutual legal assistance. And obviously we've continued doing it, so there's some value we have found. Go ahead. Just showing this because I opened the New Zealand office and then one of my successors escalated it. So that's Director Patel and that's Police Commissioner Chambers for New Zealand Police. So a soft spot in my heart, a long way away though. And this is some of my colleagues from the Cyber Task Force, actually here in Boston, and that's Malta, if no one's been there. But that was part of a remote access tool investigation, and that illustrates the role that you can see both that bilateral, which is they were working with Nigeria, Malta, and we were going through Europol as well, and the multilateral, which is Europol or the JCAT, and that means that this country's not at Europol, you can do it that way. If it's country it is, sometimes there's parts of it you can still have it, because usually in the end, but I'm a huge fan of Europol and the JCAT, even have it on my phone. Legally, you have to go through the legal process of an MLAT, and that means it's going to go to the country, it's going to go to the Ministry of Justice. So it helps us to have the people there. And all of these people are people that are working agents and analysts and computer specialists here that deploy overseas when they were going to make the arrest or the seizure. And that's the other part of the team. You may know Doug Doman is the supervisor. I guess that's a good leader. He sent his analyst and computer scientist to Malta, and he went to Nigeria. This is it's from Warzone Rat. That was one I helped in a little bit, and you can see if the next one, I'll just zoom in. I think you can see kind of the Nigerian Economic Financial Crimes Commission. That was who was standing there because we had a subject there. They are not a part of Europol, so we couldn't have, even if we wanted to do it within the confines of Europol. There's the further list, including things like you might have noticed the Romanian National Police. That was one where we had a Romanian specialist who was at Europol, some very good forensic people at Europol, and the Romanian liaison officer, and we were able to have some direct conversations with a Romanian company to make clear to them that they had the technical capability to give us a RAM dump from the virtual machine, and that the Romanian law would expect them to deliver it. But it's something that if we hadn't had all those relationships, both the bilateral, multilateral, and we hadn't had Europol's expertise and their reach, probably would have lost crucial evidence that meant we wouldn't have, the image we got would have been nearly useless. But that's that value you get from that international collaboration, beyond just I can send you an MLAT, letters rogatory, or other request. And so we'll move on to the final bit. This is Europol, the European Cybercrime Center. You see Russia's in there, but they're suspended. There's actually, I think Jordan has now added Singapore on this one, but Singapore has signed an agreement. Yeah, they're down there. There's different types of agreements. So we did a lot of work with Japan. They were very committed and capable. They only had a working arrangement that limits their ability. Everybody on the JCAT is an operational agreement. That means you can fully exchange information, and Europol can too. But you can still work with us. And you see if you put it all together, FBI, Europol, you can move forward on that. No, go forward, yeah. And this, of course, is the building. Very familiar to Christoph. He will walk to it or ride the bike to it every day, rain or shine. The different parts. And I think Christoph kind of touched on it. One of the interesting parts is you look at AP Cyborg, and they do a lot of great work. You can go look at the website with media releases. There's only about a dozen of them there. So their impact is bringing together all the other people. That's part of what there's about 25 of us that, well, I guess there are now, I've had to leave unfortunately, but good that I came back. That are the liaison officers, so certainly hitting well above their weight. And this is, you would recognize this from the one before. We'll just do a couple taps. Of course, US has to be different. We've got 4 there. But we're not the only ones. Spain on the other side. So they got the Guardia Civil and Spanish National Police. You can see the number of agencies, the priorities covering a lot, not just a narrow FBI definition of cybercrime, but the broader one. And this is probably one of the most interesting bits, because I think, as I say, a picture says 1,000 words, million words. This is the JCAT side. You may recognize this fella here. You saw him from the front side. But his desk and mine were back to back. I never got permission for that, but I figured the back of it is okay. If I got the front shot, I probably have to pay a licensing fee or something. But this shows you what the JCAT is. It's a common open space area. We all just have cubicles sitting back to back. I can tell you many a times, hopefully it was in a good context, I would hear a foreign language and then FBI somewhere in the middle. I don't know what it was, good or bad. It was maybe coming from the Danish colleague or the Swedish colleague. But this opportunity to just turn around and ask people to do things like go to lunch together. I was telling someone, and I guess it'll be at least till probably this summer. The JCAT lunch happens at 11:45 because the Finnish guy likes to have lunch early. It really throws off our Mediterranean colleagues. The Spanish and Italian don't understand that at all. It's like the late breakfast for them. But that opportunity to bond, I'd spend 4.5 days a week there. They would all have it. I think the one benefit I had was my people weren't awake yet. So they would spend the morning talking with their colleagues in their countries. And then when the Americans and Canadians woke up, they would have video conferences. We'd have 20 or 30 cases at a time. You basically have once a month at least a call. The other side is the standard liaison bureau. This is actually up on the 6th floor. It's the US. You can probably can't really see it, but the US flags, multiple US flags. And it's great that you're physically in the same building, but you can see, kind of doors, most of them closed. They'll sometimes be open. It's nice that that's much easier than getting on a flight. We're trying to arrange virtual to go up and knock on someone's door, but a little different dynamic. They're also not having the luxury of focusing in. So these people have to be utility players covering everything that comes through the door. We've been focused on the case specific and on cybercrime. This is the operational actions we've seen you can see it growing up. Sorry, Christoph, the second bit was my career there, which is 43 to 53. I guess we go down to 33 for Christoph. But that was how you're doing. You're seeing the uptick. And actually one of the things they've been looking at doing now is that constant balance I think we all struggle with, which is quantity over quality. The FBI, Germany, France were involved in just about every case. It was hard for me to get very involved. Christoph, our colleague from Denmark, they had a smaller number of cases, but would get very involved. They would be able to dig into the case and help guide it and lead it. And every case was unique. Some didn't want to be led. Somebody on board wanted to lead. Some you couldn't figure out what they were doing. But for the most part, they were all people that wanted to be there, wanted to collaborate. And I'm going to talk now, in the last little bit of my time, about one specific case. Now, this was Operation Cookie Monster, which is Genesis Market. I chose this one. It's getting a little bit old, but it's something we've had approved before to talk about. It's out there publicly. It also illustrates what tends to happen there. I came in for the final bit, for the in-person sprint, for the takedown, and then kind of the cleaning up operations afterwards. If you just saw recently Op Leak or Op Lightning, those were 2 operations that I was in on the front end, but I was gone and my successor had to take it through to the final conclusion. It's good. That's the continuity we get and Europol provides to ensure that an operation doesn't stop just because Pete chose to go back to New England because nobody told me I was going to have 2 blizzards in the first 3 months. So one of the 43 was Genesis Market. We'll kind of tap through this. And I don't know if you're not familiar with Genesis Market. It was actually a very impressive. It's both on the clear web and the dark web, but it basically was kind of making that truly cybercrime as a service. You did not have to be skilled at all to make this work for you. Anybody could do it as long as you knew another friend who was a cyber criminal that would refer you to the site. And it was kind of idiot proof. So it was very well designed. They had malware installed on all sorts of different devices. And they would keep updating it. They basically get your credentials. And then sometimes they do it now with a lot of proxy services. This did it in a similar fashion where it also made it nearly impossible for the credit card or bank to know, because it's not coming up as a Tor node. It's not coming up as a known VPN. It's somebody's proxy, whether it's an IoT device that hasn't been updated or a router you might saw the FBI put out about it, or somebody who's gotten the IPTV and doesn't realize there's a little bit extra in there. That makes it really impossible for them to know, because it's like, how are we supposed to see this? And the biggest thing too, we have the fingerprint on the side. They had the profile, so basically it'd be a virtual machine that would look like your machine, probably the stuff the person doesn't even know. So it was near impossible to catch, and you can see 1.5 million bots, 2 million identities, 80 million accounts. It could be really cheap. Like I think some were $10, even less. So it's a bargain to steal someone else's money there. We're gonna go ahead and move to the next one. 60,000 subjects all around the globe. Needless to say, we can't go after 60,000 people, but that was part of the beauty of having this collaborative approach. It was both the bilateral. The office was Milwaukee, so they don't have an RCFL. So I can't take RCFL credit, but we had CART people and we had international forensics. But basically, where we could come together at a place like Europol and JCAT and go through this. So we had, and sadly, in the modern era, it takes a while, like many of you know. It's easy to kind of hide the servers. You sometimes don't know what country it's in. It could take a little while. We eventually got it in Finland with their help. And then we were able to have an in-person meeting. We call them a sprint, not dissimilar to the sprints you would have for software development. Basically, in this case, Europol pays for the Europeans, and we get everybody in a room together. It can get rather tight, a lot of laptops, so it gets a little warm frequently. But everybody's sitting there, and it's amazing how much you can get done when you can just walk around the corner and ask the FBI person or the analyst, and they can pull the data rather than even waiting for the monthly video calls or sending emails, or which we're not supposed to do on the FBI side. So sending an official request or foreign dissemination request. But you could get a lot done, not all of it done. Obviously, Europol didn't want to pay for everybody to spend the summer in The Hague. They don't have that sort of space. But you got it all together, organized it, and we can go ahead and move forward in 1 week. So the 60,000, obviously we start triaging it down. We didn't want to go for just the low hanging fruit. We don't want to also go for the near impossible ones. You want to find a nice balance. And that balance kind of comes down to the participating country. What is it you're looking to do? What can you do? In some countries, and we found out because we're sitting together, you can't just do a knock and talk. If you don't have a criminal investigation, that's not allowed. Other countries, that was fine. But you can see here what that meant is we feed into the countries the information. It also illustrated the benefit of our bilateral relationship. My replacement, now there at Europol, was at the time our cyber attaché in Canada. And so he came out for this. He sat with his Canadian colleagues and then went back to Canada with them, because the next 2 or 3 months was going to be where the real work happens to get us to Disruption Day, which is going through getting the legal process and getting all the information you need to be able to do the different searches, or even to do knock and talks, where there is some value to that. And we'll talk about that at the very end in terms of our overall strategy, which is something we all discussed and agreed upon. Part of it, and the prevention part, happened on a Dutch police boat touring around Rotterdam's harbor. But, we still mostly talk substance. And you can see here the operation. That was the command post. And it went from Eastern Europe, followed the sun around. Our Australian colleagues were last. And these actions are all anything from arrests to search to knock and talks, where basically you have a low-level cyber criminal. You're not looking to prosecute them, but maybe wake them up, make sure they know that, yeah, this might have been fun, might have been for the lulz, but it is actually a crime. Something that you can hopefully have that impact. And that was something that was done as part of an overall cyber offender prevention strategy. The Dutch and the British in particular have very robust programs. One of them is called Intercop. And so we kind of brought them as the experts, and they would make sure the right messaging. If you look at Operation Cookie Monster online, you will find videos including one with my boss when we were in the Netherlands, because he lost the draw there. It was him or I, and like, he had to do the video, but it was part of conveying the message as part of an overall message. Letters would go out, emails. We notify, obviously, the potential victims. In Europe, there were some challenges because of the way we would make that information available wasn't acceptable under the GDPR and under their regulations. So they created a website called Check Your Act. Again, another example of where when we're coming together, we can make sure we accommodate everybody's needs and coordinate it. It's not always the most efficient way, but in the end, it gets most effective. This was the splash page. You can see the Check Your Hack, and notice it's police.nl. So they were covering Europe. We have repeated that similar, and then our email. Later, I know we had other cases where we did Telegram, and trust me, you get a lot of garbage. But a couple little tidbits that are valuable, and you can see the nice kind of obligatory splash page. A lot of people involved, and we want to be kind of inclusive and recognize their work. There's a fair number of people that aren't recognized because that wasn't in their interest. So like a lot of times when we're dealing with corporate entities, they might say, look, we're happy to help, but for us, any reputational risk of like highlighting it isn't in our interest. But we want to get these bad actors off of our platforms, or we want to get these bad actors to not be getting unauthorized access to our systems. And so they would help. And some of that impact would be on the back end, where as part of the strategy, it was they would implement things after we took down the infrastructure so that the malware wouldn't work as effectively any longer. We would put out the messaging to undermine the trust that the cyber criminals had within one another. So in the end, that was all crucial because we were never able to take down the dark website. But overall, that whole campaign got to the point that nobody trusted Genesis Market anymore. It wasn't working very well because of the different tactics we had taken, some of which was public, some which was not. And it undermined the business to the point where we don't know if it was a real sale or not. We kind of suspect it was a fake sale to kind of save face, but it was put up for sale a few months later. Somebody allegedly bought it. Unfortunately, it's not the type of thing where we could, get back all the stolen credentials, but the people know, the companies know. So you're hoping to mitigate that. And sadly, as is almost always the case, going all the way back to Silk Road, which I did one in Australia, there's always someone who's willing to step in next. And it is pretty easy if you plan even just a little bit. You have a few backups. It's pretty hard for us to truly take you down. Usually it comes back under a new name, especially the ransomware. But not always. Sometimes it's the same name. We can click it one more time. You can see the newspaper again, part of that overall strategy. Again, and then a highlight Q Intel. It's a cybersecurity company, so it was in their interest, and they had done enough work that everyone thought it was worth recognizing it. Like I said, there were other companies that did incredible work that didn't want that attention. And then the final slide here on Genesis Market, hopefully we're kind of on schedule, is the Dutch cyber offender prevention team. I was not very familiar with that. Obviously, I know of other prevention campaigns, but I didn't know how robust they had. Everything from these academies to teach young kids to divert them from it, all the way up to some of the most sophisticated actors, and not just Genesis Market, but other cases where they're helping us with our strategies to how we're going to engage or how you're going to message to kind of basically attack the criminal business model as a business, recognizing that in my 3 years, it seemed like they all were, but not all. Most seem to be sitting in Russia. And so you're going to be lucky to get your hands on one or two at some time when they're vacationing somewhere or when they travel and think they're still anonymous. And other times you'll message out to try to prevent that by outing them. But having that as a strategy as opposed to a kind of ad hoc decision that one country makes. Ultimately, in all of these working relationships, I may be the lab director, so I'm supposed to establish kind of the standards, make sure we follow them, make sure the overtime gets paid and the lease cars are good. but we're all there voluntarily collaborating with one another, and they're functionally independent investigations and operations. So I don't get to tell Christoph that the Belgian federal police will do this, nor does he get to tell the FBI. Partly he knows if he told me and I told them, they wouldn't listen to us. But more importantly, it's respecting that. But what you find is when you say to your colleagues, this is the information I have. Okay, that helps me get to a server, and under my legal framework, I can do it this way. And then I can share it. Sometimes I can share it. You can do what you want with it. Sometimes your country won't let you do what you want. You need it under an affidavit or MLAT. Other times you can use it for lead or intelligence value only. But by having in the JCAT or having ARC-20 forward deployed, we have that ability to have those discussions and have the experts involved with it and plan and implement accordingly. Because the more you can do police to police, the cyber actors move fast, and the fastest we can move, even police to police, even with time differences. I think I got notified from Europol and some ecology about 3 years, about 200 ransomware attacks that were ongoing. I can get that back, and maybe we can try to help to do something, but it was just probably a small percentage that we could have a positive impact. And that's before you get into MLATs and the legal process, which is there for a reason, but it's very challenging. It's not designed for the current thing. And certainly not designed for the cyber threat. It will be interesting if you kind of keep your eyes out come August and later, when the Europeans have their new e-discovery regulations, because the view there is there's going to create more direct obligations for the companies to provide. That'll conflict with US law. So there's a lot of work that'll have to be done, I think, in the EU and elsewhere to resolve that. But that's trying to avoid months of waiting for mutual legal assistance returns that by the time you come, depending on the country, like we don't have any mandatory retention, or were you able to preserve anything? A lot of times leads are lost because it's just too slow. And that was the last slide, I think, no surprises. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If I don't know it, it's about Europol or the JCAT, I'll just wake up Christoph from his phone and he can answer.
So thank you very much for this interesting presentation. My question is about the software, what you are using. According to slide that you mentioned, you are using Encase. On the other hand, there are some open sources.
Yeah, we don't do too much with the Encase, it's an old slide.
Because autopsy or Discover or Magnet, Axiom, etc.
Yeah.
I want to know why you specially selected Encase.
No,
What's the reason for that?
That's just a legacy. I'll blame the AI on that one. That's not creative. No, Encase is a historical thing. We would have used an FPK. It's going to be a lot of the commercial things like Axiom or Gray Key or Celebrite Premium. And there's no special bargain for us, federal government. We're paying rates. In fact, sometimes we pay higher rates because we put conditions on there like, oh, it can't be connected to a network. It needs to be standalone. Well, it makes it harder for them to police up their license. So yeah, it's all the same standard stuff. I'm not aware of stuff. And I worked with the Europol people too and some of the forensic. There is some stuff that we develop on the higher end, and Europol is top shelf. That's them, the Germans, us, Brits, Dutch, French are doing some of that high level development stuff. But that's a small fraction. That's probably targeting mostly like servers and encryption and such. And it's all unclassified. I don't know in the classified space. My thing is for cyber criminal. Europol was only cyber criminal, and at RCFL it's pretty much almost all cyber criminal, where it's all criminal. So I don't get much into the classified space. But what I have found in my time is the good old fashioned, getting a PIN code to get into the phone. Remembering, I know we told an Australian federal police guy one time, hey, he's using a virtual machine within a virtual machine. That was make sure to get the device, and he got it, closed it. And we never got into that, either virtual machine. So it's some of those basics that you're trying to do any of that, because trying to brute force your way in is, as we all know, very, very challenging. And for us, it's pretty much going to be as challenging. There is not anything special unless they haven't told me in the first 2 or 3 months. But I think I would have found out.
Thank you so much.
Very repositories, information that has been.
By repository, what do you mean? Like of all the data or?
Internet operations, other amounts of.
Yeah.
Right, they can be modified, everything.
Probably you just have really the press releases from kind of, from Europol. Obviously, we go around and present on it. And part of the reason I ask on the repository is there could be challenges about retaining data, especially if it's something obtained by legal process. That I might not be allowed to kind of minimize the irrelevant stuff. Europol itself is a repository, but it's only open to law enforcement and it always respects the rules we put it in. So they have what are called handling codes. If I share some information, I say H2, they can't tell anybody about it. They can try to come back and beg me to lower the handling code because somebody else who, if they put it in H2, they can't tell me who has a, so that's part of their thing, making those sort of connections. So there is that there's a limit to how long they keep the data because the specifics is invaluable, as we all know, to making those connections. The cyber criminals get better. You know, Christoph talked about Silk Road. As we know, Dread Pirate Roberts, it was something, what, a decade earlier that he screwed up. That is that, and that's where you'll get a lot of times in the work we're doing with the crypto and all of that. It'll be a little piece or it'll be something that then helps us identify the person later. But unfortunately, there's not like an easy repository or all the presentations. There's just the basic press release, which is not have the details you probably need or want.
You mentioned something impressive that you look like UFBI and you don't want that have to and
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
you mentioned that you don't want bad actors to get to your environment. So this is very nice, but how will you deal with internal bad actors?
I could someone did some,
So the bad actors. Right, okay.
yeah. Or if you want to just come halfway up. I had a hearing test with the FBI recently, so it's down a little bit, but they tell me it's okay.
I would like to know, how will you guys deal with bad actors that are already inside the environment? How will you deal with them?
Oh, like into our networks?
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, that's not my job to protect, it's somebody else's. But that's also why we try to do things like the air gap networks, try to keep things up to date. We're doing a lot of the same fundamentals you'd all be doing for your own networks. And of course, we have the same challenges everyone does of the insider threat, which is, you know, the reason phishing is so popular is that's the best way to get into places. A little harder for ours. But I don't, there's a whole division that's kind of responsible for doing that. And obviously we are a big target. The state actors who can come with a 0-day or come with, you know, targeting us much better are out there and looking to get into it. I know at Europol, just as an example, we had times where they were trying to do DDoS attacks. We've had that in the past. Years ago, web defacements. So unfortunately, well, fortunately for me, I'm not the one that has to protect it. But that's also part of the reasons, you know, I mentioned, we have to pay extra for our licenses because we won't put them on the internet. We have air gapped or secure networks. Nothing's completely secure, but it's all designed to try to keep it, partly because we have to abide by the overall US government rules, both cybersecurity will come from CISA and the different NIST standards. And then since we are base networks, a lot of them are classified networks, there's additional high level standards because, you know, you can't have a spill of sending the classified data down or bringing malware in there. But I don't have probably a good answer that would tell you, and there's certainly, as you all would not be surprised, that there is no magic bullet. It means there's a lot of people spending a lot of money, trying to keep on top of technology, keep the intelligence active and diligent.
That may have with the legality of the obtained evidence, since you work on the same case. And as you said, for example, one of your colleagues, I don't know, from a European company had something, you tell him the information. Well, is it legally obtained for them, or could it be challenged within a court? Because sometimes this could be a case for nothing.
That's usually part of what you're sharing is what was the legal authority.
Okay.
You're also sharing the restrictions that might be upon them. It's up to them to make sure that doesn't create a problem in their legal system. Because obviously depending on the nature of the relationship. So for instance, part of the reason this is a collaborative and not like a joint, like somebody's in charge is if they're in charge, then we're kind of all responsible for who's in charge telling us what to do it and they break the rules. But it's a good point that countries are all different. So under some countries, like when I was in Australia, New Zealand, they needed everything under an affidavit. We didn't need that. Other countries can't use it if they don't get it via an MLAT. So if it's not all legally, officially, usually what happens at the end of the day, you need it via an MLAT. But this whole process is designed to save the time there. And then it may not be what you're leaving for, but part of the RCFL, that is one of the fundamental questions. Before we start any work or do anything, we need to make sure it has appropriate legal authority. And then part of our handling of the evidence after the fact is consistent with that. So we are not just sharing the raw data with somebody else. We limit it to kind of law enforcement, or if you have to produce it in discovery, and make sure people are complying with the restrictions that are put on that evidence. Because, a lot of times, there's ultimately a manual review of it to make sure it meets the threshold of the search warrant. So unfortunately, we can't throw it all in a big database and search it later because it has to be the pertinent stuff. And then each district can have different rules. I know California has some challenges for all of us in terms of that. Hopefully that answered the question. Thanks. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is
A little late.
no, it's perfect. Thank you so much, Pete. Like to recognize, what his contribution to this particular field. I know a lot of people, and I think this group is also very international, which I like the most. Sometimes it's easy to say that, yeah, we have partners in overseas, and shake hands and let's work together. But there's a lot of things that, someone like, Pete to navigate once they are, in foreign country, their jurisdictions, and it's quite challenging. And I see those folks who require not only the good understanding of all these, the procedural and legal frameworks, but also have a good understanding of the culture of another country to understand and collaborate and politically as well. It requires tons of experience, wisdom, and knowledge to work these different the law enforcement agents from all different countries. So again, I'd like to thank for his service for many years for this country and especially for this field, and also for coming here for today to share some of his knowledge and experience. So again, Peter, this is our here the small token of the appreciation and also it's no problem. Yeah, well, I think we're gonna take a picture together.
Because at the beginning of the session.
So now that
So thanks so much.
okay, thank you again. We have so we have a breakout session. I know that we didn't have a little short break before we start in here. So we go to the other building, our wax building. There's also what I like to talk here is that a little bit of the mistakes that we made it, but this time we want to make sure that the equally distribute of the assigned the rooms, breakout sessions. So please, we'll see in your folder, the program folder, you can see the paper IDs. And if you really want to look at the titles, please look little folder. There's a full description of the programs. I'd like to, if you again take a little break, please take a break, and we'll probably see over there 2:10 is okay, like a 10 minute break. Yes. Okay, so we will see in the.
I have a question.
At 2:10.
3:10?
3:10, I'm sorry. Okay, I will see you over there.
Hi. Hello.
There
Hi,
are-
my name is Shiv Kumar. I am a session chair for session 5 presentation in the Zoom online. We will conducting in this right. And it is from 3 o'clock to.
About 10 minutes later, your session will be started.
Yeah, we will start in 10 minutes.
Okay, I'll wait.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.